With a game with as much customization as Pokemon, it's not a surprise to see sets that are extremely one-dimensional and obscenely gimmicky pop up. And perhaps the most famous one is the Fear tactic, which originated, you're not going to believe this, on GameFAQs. That's right, GameFAQs invented Fear. Then again, I suppose it's sort of poetic that a community comprised mostly of lower-end players, to be polite, would introduce a tactic that is mostly effective against those same lower-end players. Now, let's get the obvious trivia out of the way. What does Fear mean? Originally, it stood for fucking evil annihilating rodent. However, afterwards, they decided to make a more politically correct version of this, which ended up being Focus Sash, Endeavor, Quick Attack, Rattata, which works just as well, except it's more politically correct. And it's also a lot more descriptive because it actually describes what the Fear set is. Basically, the idea is that you're going to send in a level 1 Pokemon that knows Endeavor and usually a priority move. You're gonna send it in, and after that, it's gonna take a hit, go down to 1 HP, then you hit it with Endeavor to bring it down to 1 HP as well, and after that, you finish it off with priority before it can touch you again. So that's the basic idea behind the Fear tactic. So, what a Pokemon needs in order to qualify as a Fear. It needs a way to survive the initial hit, which can be either Focus Sash or the newly buffed Sturdy, which also opens a few more doors, but we're going to get to that later. Next, obviously it needs Endeavor. There are no variants of this. All Fears absolutely need Endeavor. Fortunately, it was a move tutor in Platinum and Hard Gold Soul Silver, so Endeavor is a lot more accessible than you'd think. And after that, once the Endeavor has been landed, you need a way to finish off the opponent before it can touch you. Priority is the most common way of doing so, though you can also use Sandstorm or Hail if the enemy is unaffected by it. You can also use Toxic Spikes. There are a lot of possibilities. We're going to go over the main one soon. It's also important to note that you want your Fear to have as low a level as possible. Usually it's going to be level 1, though depending on what you use, the required level may be a bit higher. The point of that is to make sure that the initial hit you take will bring you down to 1 HP. First, let's talk about the various priority moves that are available. Many of them have advantages and disadvantages over other priority moves, so we're just going to go over that real quick. First of all, the most obvious one, Quick Attack, Mach Punch, and Vacuum Wave. There are normal and fighting moves, which means that ghosts are completely immune to these. They are immune to Endeavor as well, so unless your Fear has Scrappy, ghosts are a full stop to Fear. Next, we got Sucker Punch, which only works if the opponent chose an offensive move. You gotta be careful when using a Fear with Sucker Punch because you could just as easily end up as setup fodder while you try using Sucker Punch and nothing happens because the opponent is busy setting up with Calm Mind or something. So once again, be very careful with Sucker Punch, rely on the effect of Surprise. Then we have Feint and Extreme Speed, two moves that have had massive changes to them in Generation 5 and both help Fear Pokemon compete better. First of all, we got Feint, which retains its +2 priority from Generation 4. However, its power has been lowered from 50 to 30, but the good news is that now you can use Feint even when the opponent is not using Protect. So since the point of using that priority move is to knock off 1 HP, Feint is going to do that just fine, even with just 30 power. Extreme Speed is also a bit different from what it used to be. Before, its priority was +1, same as all other priority moves, but it's been increased to +2 this generation, which means that both Feint and Extreme Speed will trump anyone that tries to take your fear down with priority moves, unless said priority moves are feint or extreme speed, obviously. There are other priority moves that are available to fears, most notably Ice Shard. There's no real drawback to Ice Shard because no one's immune to it, but it also has only +1 priority. And as far as I know, no fear can learn Aqua Jet, so things like Storm Drain or Water Absorb aren't even a factor for the time being at least. Now, an alternative to using priority moves to finish off your opponent is to let weather do it for you, though obviously there are some reliability problems that are due to the fact that the opponent may be immune to said weather. Nonetheless, the basics are the same. You use Endeavor to get the opponent down to 1 HP, and then the weather finishes off your opponent. The best user of that strategy is Aaron. The reason for that is because it has the Sturdy ability, which allows you to forego the Focus Sash and use something else. Now what Aaron is going to want to use is the Shell Bell. The reason for that is that when you use Endeavor to bring your opponent down to 1 HP, the Shell Bell will actually heal you all the way to the max, which will allow Sturdy to be reactivated so you could eventually use Endeavor on another Pokemon. It's also immune to Sandstorm and Poison. Well, the Sandstorm part is obvious because the whole point of using it is letting the Sandstorm kill the opponent while not killing you. It's also immune to Poison, which is always a nice boost, but this strategy is still entirely countered by Sandstorm immune Pokemon. Now, there are a lot of fear-capable Pokemon, each with their own individual strengths and weaknesses, so we're going to take a look at these and try to determine which fears are better than others. So let's get started with the ones that are absolutely useless. They have no appeal other than the fact that they can learn Endeavor and Quick Attack. And the original Rattata is one of these. The first point Fear was trying to make is that a vendor trash Pokemon such as Rattata could be somewhat viable if used right, hence the Fear strategy. But there are also others that unfortunately don't have any appeal at all and thus should not be used. These include Mankey, Poliwrath, Doduo, Mew, Treecko, Chimchar, Starly, Plant Wormadam, Buneary, and both of Shaman's Forms. So what do these guys not have that others do? Well, we're going to take a quick look at that right now. As you can see, I'm including my personal recommendations, which usually will be Pokemon that have other qualities than the ones that we're taking a look at right now. So, first and foremost, as I've said before, is Feint or Extreme Speed, being that they both have +2 priority and can trump Pokemon that try to kill you with priority. So we got Pikachu, Smeargle, Hitmontop, Zangoose, and Togekiss. My recommendation, obviously, is going to be Smeargle, because even though it doesn't really have any of the other qualities that I'm going to be covering soon, it still has access to every move in the game, well, except for Chatter, but what use does a Fear have for Chatter anyway? Next up is a trait that is really, really awesome if you can get a hold of it. I'm talking, of course, about Scrappy. Remember what I said about Endeavor not affecting ghosts? Same thing for Quick Attack or Mach Punch or Vacuum Wave. Well, with Scrappy, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Ghosts, which are the most accessible counter to Fear, are going to get hit by those guys. Now there are two Fears that can get Scrappy, namely Kangaskhan and Taillow. Now, the main reason why I recommend Taillow over Kangaskhan is because Kangaskhan's priority move is, unfortunately, Sucker Punch, which is rather unreliable, as I've said before. Whereas Taillow has access to a Scrappy Quick Attack, which will hit anything but Shedinja, which is really, really cool. So that makes Taillow one of the best Fears almost by default. Then we have Sandstorm Immunity, which is very important considering just how much Sandstorm is used, though you can also use the Sandstorm to your advantage if you choose to use one of these guys. So we got Swinub, Corsola, Phanpy, Donphin, Aron, Ground Wormadam, Steel Wormadam, as well as Arcan. That's right, folks. A Pokemon that's meant to be utterly crippled when at low HP can actually perform its duties admirably well in this particular low HP tactic. Now, my recommendations for this category are Swinub, because it's immune to Hail as well, and it has access to Ice Shard, which, as I said, has no immunity, well, outside of Shedinja, but that's neither here nor there. Then you got Donphin, which has access to Sturdy, which is something Phanpy doesn't have. It has Pickup instead, and Pickup is completely useless in that case. Aron, as I said, is the best user of that strategy that I was talking about earlier on. And if you want a more conventional Steel-type user of Fear that is immune to Poison, hence why it's so important that it's a Steel-type, well, Steel Wormadam just might be the one for you. Do note, however, that it uses Sucker Punch for priority, which, once again, has reliability problems. And then there's Hail Immunity, which only Swinub has, so obviously it's going to be my recommendation for this category. Next up is Sturdy. I've already mentioned how well Aron works before. Donphin is the only conventional Fear that uses priority to have Sturdy, though it can also use Sandstorm to its advantage to kill off opponents if the occasion arises. The problem with Donphin, though, is that it cannot use the Shell Bell like Aron can. The reason for that is because the lowest level a Donphin can be is level 25. Now a Shell Bell can fully heal a level 1 Pokemon using Endeavor, but at level 25, your max HP is just going to be way too high for it to work. So Shell Bell is off limits, though I guess you can use any other item in the game, whichever one tickles your fancy, which is something that not many other Fears can claim. Finally, we have Poison Immunity. Same thing, Aron is the unconventional one, and Steel Wormadam is the more conventional one, so whichever style you want to use, well, you have your choice between these two when it comes to Poison Immune Pokemon. So, putting all the recommendations that I've made together, we've narrowed the list of good Fears that you can consider using down to 6. We got Swinub, Donphin, Smeargle, Tailo, Aron, and Steel Wormadam. Use whichever one you like depending on which qualities you are looking for in your Fear, but these 6 are easily the best. Now, there is a reason why Fear is considered gimmicky, and that's because it's very easily countered. For example, you got Ghosts, as I've said earlier, that are immune to Endeavor and many priority moves, though Scrappy can bypass that immunity. Opposing priority will also be effective unless you're using Feint or Extreme Speed. Entry hazards will break your Sturdy or Focus Sash. Sandstorm and Hail will kill many of the Fears that are not immune to it. Leftovers and Black Sludge users will survive because, well, you're doing like 1 or 2 damage, not the 15 necessary to cancel out the Leftovers recovery that your opponent got at the end of the last turn. Same for the Citrus Berry, which works about the same way. Negative priority moves, that's an interesting one. The way that works is that if you use that against a Fear, you are going to be down to 12 HP or so, and after that you will have broken Sturdy or the Focus Sash, meaning that you can easily get rid of it on the next turn. Multi-hit moves will work just as well. They break the Focus Sash and Sturdy. Mold Breaker also is effective against Sturdy users, and if for some reason you want to use a Fear in Ubers, you also have Turbo Blaze and Terra Vault to keep in mind. Note that this list is not complete. There are many more ways to beat a Fear-using Pokemon, but these are the main ones. So as you can see, Fear is very one-dimensional and gimmicky. However, if you know when to pull it out, you will definitely have a lot of fun sweeping your opponent with level 1 Pokemon. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully I've given you a little more insight into what makes an effective Fear at least less ineffective than the rest. So I hope you have a good day, and I will see you next time for more Let's Play.